Do you want to talk about free speech?
So this happened.
Which has many conservatives claiming censorship. I don't know how to tell you this, but it's not censorship. If you sign a contract saying you agree to their rules, when you sign up for the app. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are all private companies who do not give a fuck about your feelings. And that's capitalism. Isn't that your favorite thing? All I hear when you complain like this is, I make a habit of using words before actually understanding what they mean. You're not being silenced. You're just awful.
And now, broadcasting from the jungles of Southeast Asia, it is time for the Ed Namrock Podcast.
All right, you're probably going to ask why he showed that fucking video. Well, first and foremost, ever since this whole insurrection shit happened, a week and a half ago, I have buddies in Australia that I met through, this old employer that I will forever cherish in my heart because it went out of business, unfortunately, which we'll bring it to the next segue after I get this out of my mind here. They basically were DMing me saying, hey, are you guys done killing each other? Like basically ridiculing us as not just a country, but as people of this North American land. And it's not the first time I've heard other acquaintances that are in different countries saying, dude, you guys are so fucked up. And a lot of them are propositioning me like, why don't you move to Australia? Why don't you come to New Zealand? Well, we have no coronavirus. I was like, I didn't believe him at first. And then I brought up some stuff on Reddit. And lo and behold, the fucking country of New Zealand has no COVID cases. And I'm just like, okay, and I wonder why. But then I forget that they're really strict on immigration. Like literally you can't exit their airports without being thoroughly screened. And if you have even like, a petty misdemeanor or a felony, then sometimes you won't even make it past, their TSA. It's like, I can see how they roll out there and, just the different perspectives and their model of the world, just talking to these people, it's crazy and it's a little disappointing, but I'm a high hope kind of guy just because I'm born and raised in fucking LA and I've been through all kinds of shit, seen it all, met people that have been through hell and fucking high water, which brings me to my guests. And these two gentlemen here are very dear to me because when I was at a point in my life where I got into a position of work, of course, in retail, where I felt like I was Michael Jordan coming back and playing for the fucking Washington Wizards. I was already past my prime, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll give it another shot. Let's see if I still got it. And if it wasn't for these gentlemen here, I would have been so miserable through my short tenure that I had with this company. And I was fortunate enough to meet a group of guys and girls that really, really just not only made the days go by so quickly, because sometimes it was slow, sometimes there was nothing to do. And I learned a lot. And at the same time, I'm just like, oh, these guys are just like me. They're just from further east. I was like, okay, so, we're going to get to know them right now and give you a little bit of context as to how we met and what happened and all the fucking crazy ass stories that we'll share. Give it up for Mr. Jimmy Guevara and Juan Martinez, actually co-founders of Surviving L.A. podcast, available on all major platforms. We would have gone a little bit earlier, gentlemen, but of course, as everyone knows, this shit is not easy. I'm surprised it even still fucking works. Everyone still complains about Zoom, Google Hangouts, how, oh shit, I just pressed the button, I got it to work. Of course, man. It's a miracle that we've even got this fucking far, and shit hasn't like caught on fire or fucking exploded in front of your face. But gentlemen, thank you for joining me, man. Fuck, man, where do I start? I mean, I met you guys in 2012, August 2012. That's when I met you guys. It's been it's going on 9 years. I'm just like, and I remember every single month up until we all kind of went our separate ways. And I think it was January, February. But just to give people a little bit of context, Jimmy, Juan, and I mean, we can actually just openly talk about this stuff now because it's kind of buried and gone. We used to work for Sprint in Westwood. And me living in San Gabriel Valley and commuting to fucking Westwood every goddamn day was an adventure on its own, man. And, you know, when you build up all that fucking angst and then have to park at the Ross parking lot on Ohio and walk down.
We didn't have our own parking lot, that we had to park 2 blocks away underground and then go to work. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a trip because we had such a small parking lot in the back. It could literally only fit like 4 cars if everybody
and like 4 homeless people, Jimmy, right? Jimmy knows, man. I don't know if it was Jimmy or you, Juan, that would always have to kick people on the back.
To be honest with you, because
yeah, that's a bitch and a half to commute. Oh, it's more than that. But anyway,
so when you started though, was that your first store at Westwood?
Yes. And before that, I mean, everyone asked me about, you know, my previous experience. I was already in retail, especially in wireless sales since 2002. So I was already 11 years in the game, dude. So I apply online. I drive to Westwood to interview with Ezra and Renee. And immediately I get the position. And I started maybe like after background check passed, and you know, I had to drink one of those masking liquids so I wouldn't pop on the fucking urine test because I was smoking a bunch of weed. And lo and behold, man, it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and I think August 1st, 2012 is when I started, believe it or not. And that's when I met you guys, and that's all she wrote, man. And then I think we lasted until January of 2013, if I remember correctly.
That's what I was telling Jimmy. I was thinking back about how long you were working with us, and I think I even asked you because in my mind, it felt like we worked at least 2 to 3 years together. But then she was like less than a year or around a year.
It felt that long. To be honest with you, it felt that long.
Yeah, out of everybody there, I maybe keep in touch with like 3 people, including you. And
yeah,
Dave, I worked with, you know, for it was at least 3 years. So it's crazy how much of an impact you made in that just 1 year.
No, totally. Because I remember that first month, I came to a fucking retail store that was considered kind of like the top of the fucking heat, right? And we're an A store. I'm like, what the fuck is an A store, right? And then as I learned about it more, I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of where people come to get their full service with this company. And I'm like, the store kind of spoke for itself, because I'm like, how could this even be labeled that? Because, you know, there's no foot traffic, right? So, but then I realized slowly but surely, which is what I'm going to get into now, is I started seeing celebrities come in, and that was kind of like the bulb that went over my head. I'm like, oh, so this is kind of why it's the way it is. And then seeing Josh Brolin go in there, seeing fucking Cat Williams come in and just spaz out on the sales floor for no fucking reason. Of course, our favorite fucking customer that would come 5 minutes before closing, Mr. Suge Knight. And that was, here's the thing is I'm meeting all these people that are regulars. And then of course the Iranian community that I so solemnly hold dear to my heart. And I get why they are the way they are. They're just really, really rugged people that have come from very, very tough environments, man. And yeah, they come over here, they start business, and they try so hard to save as much money. I get it, because that's how they learn how to make money, is to not spend it. And it made sense, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, I mean, the women are beautiful. I mean, shit, you can't deny that. But it's kind of like they're kind of like us Latinos too, man. They're very exclusive to and proprietary to just not their own people. Not to be very subjective with that shit, but I mean, it kind of felt they're very culture conservationist is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it did feel that way, especially working there. You get that sense where they didn't want to like divert too much. Culture, and you get it, because you do want to preserve that. So there's that sense where they keep like an arm's length, You can't blame them for that.
And then, going through that with you guys, learning the shit that you technicians dealt with on a daily.
Oh, yeah, by the way, just to clarify it, Ed was a sales rep. And then Jimmy and I, we were technicians. And he
finally got off his phone because it wasn't working. So
yeah, look.
So I got my first COVID, so I'm good, man.
Wow, he's gonna start fucking. He's gonna start fucking. Was it the Pfizer one that also makes Viagra?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. Oh fuck! Watch out, bro. He's gonna have a mean vessel right now, like that. No. So the context is you guys were technicians.
Yeah, we were technicians. Yeah. I think Sprint was the only one that had in-house technicians. I think Verizon did for a while, but
they were lousy.
And they were third party, which funny enough now.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works now. We'll get into it, but we were actually employed by Sprint, and we were technicians. So, we got our fair share of shit.
People. And guess what? We have comedy for days on people. The things that people came in for was hilarious, and to this day, I still kind of laugh about one of them. Where I'm all like, remember 2012? Just think of the time frame that we were around. Someone came in saying, "Why is my phone not charged when you said it was wireless?" Think about
that. Hey, you gotta.
Okay. Wait.
He was only ahead,
of his time.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this, because I came later to the crew, and there was just a lot of stories before my time. So. Let's start at least with 2012. I came in August of 2012. August 1st, 2012 is when I started working with you guys. Before that, what did I miss out on? I'm sure there was a lot of shit.
Well,
I know there was a lot of shit.
Well, you do remember for us, what we used to do, once I learned how to tap into the intercom system of our store, we used to play like fucking metal in our store during our comps. And then sometimes we would, like, when our managers weren't around.
So we turning down the overhead speakers, and we just connected. Our phones. Or even at the time,
I could just see customers fucking with fucking Fear Factory blasting through the fucking intercom.
We got in trouble because obviously they pay for the advertisement, they pay for the station. There goes that.
Yeah, we've seen a decrease in residual income. Royalties are not being paid out at store 1466 in Westwood. Can you fucking do something about that? Okay. So, the one question I have for you guys, which I never really knew, is how did this whole Suge Knight thing happen?
Well, I think actually
I heard bits and
encountered
pieces. I
Suge
didn't
around
hear.
the same time you did, but because he
Yeah.
started about a year before I did. I started in 2011, and you maybe
Okay.
2010.
Yeah. So it was just one of our other guys used to take care of him all the time, but it was just random. Like one day he just showed up at our store, but he always came with other
His posse, right?
Yeah, with his posse.
Oh, that's right.
His entourage and shit.
He had his girls with him, So, but one of the weirdest thing about him was just that, he would just come in for the simplest thing, and it was always just like to pay a bill, or and then it was always one salesman that always sold to him only, So he never really got like crazy with us, at least in our store, he never really got crazy with us, but it was just like whatever, man.
I think the first time you were there, right? Wasn't it when when Mark was closing? Or was it you?
Yeah.
That's the first time he actually like rose his fucking voice, and he looked like he was just gonna blast someone in the fucking store.
He said something about, I mean, I would respectfully always refer to him as Mr. Knight because he's old. And I remember that particular incident is because there was fraud committed on his account from a previous employee that was terminated. And he basically played the victim card each and every time with his account because of that circumstance, and felt like we had to basically roll out the red carpet each and every time 5 minutes before closing. And we wouldn't get out that bitch till like almost 10 o'clock, man.
Now, when you say
because he would,
you mean fired or terminated?
I have no fucking clue. All I know is that, okay, there was Suge Knight, and I remember we the victims. He keeps saying that. And then we had guys like Master P come in, Percy, nicest fucking dude, man.
Well, so was Luda.
Nicest guy.
Was freaking cool.
Luda was really fun. Like, okay, I compare and contrast. I'm like, okay, so obviously Suge came from a very different generation of gangster rap in that industry. Now, fast forward, I mean, Master P is not that much younger, but just the mentality, I can tell, like, okay, so what they say is true, not just in hip hop, but in entrepreneurship in general, where you keep repeating the same fucking story in your head daily. You're basically gonna live it for the rest of your life until you die.
Oh yeah, dude. So
and I think that's what he was doing.
Yeah, you saw that attitude from Suge from like day one. Like as soon as something didn't go his way, he snapped at all of us, dude.
Oh,
like,
totally.
So you see where like, all right, dude. Like
I think even one of our salesmen even questioned one of his girls one time, like, what happened there? And then she kind of like looks at him and she goes like, I fell. And then he kind of goes like,
oh yeah. Yeah, I don't doubt it. And then I remember one time, I don't know if you were there, Hector, but Hector, Juan, I keep calling you Hector, I don't know why. Juan, I don't know if you were there or if it was our old buddy Ramel. I don't remember but this was late, and our old buddy Ramel will not stay late. But he came in with his BlackBerry. Remember when BlackBerries are still around? And he genuinely asked me. He was always really nice to me. He's a young. He always called me young man. I don't know if you remember that. So young man. He said, "Can you help me set up my gangster mail?" And I'm like, "Gangster mail." Yeah, I'm like, what's that? He's like, the gangster mail is big ass hands, like a little ass BlackBerry, like just pointing at it. He wanted me to set up his Gmail.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Gangster mail. And I'm like, I set that shit up, and I to be honest, man, no disrespect to Suge, man, he was probably the reason why I grew up listening to fucking gangster rap because of all the roster he had.
Yeah,
I think the guy was illiterate, man, to be honest with you. I don't know if he was able to read or write because it seemed like it. And I feel bad.
You remember? So we had this other cat, that we worked with, and they kind of accused him of that, or just being really slow, like just taking his time, like not even understanding.
Right.
That's why he always came in, because he would probably get
Yeah.
that long ass bill in the mail. He was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this. Fuck that."
Yeah, and you know, after years and years of whatever, and the guy played football, I'm sure, and I'm one to confess, man. I mean, I played football half my life too, and I know I have brain damage. That's how deep this shit goes with CTE and all that shit. I'm almost positive with the mixture of drugs and head trauma that he's had and all the fights he's been in. Yeah, and then later in his career, and later on in his career, he was getting knocked out by younger guys in the clubs and shit. And I'm just like, he was on a downward spiral, if you ask me, man. It was getting pretty bad.
I mean, that's one of the TBI too, man. Just getting traumatic brain injury in the head constantly, you know, it would do that. It will cause that rage and that constant anger and frustration to come off.
So yeah, him and Cat Williams used to come in a lot together, and Cat was not in a good place at the time too.
No, I was. Were you there when he came in? He came in and who was it? Dimitri had asked him, "Can I help you?" He said, "No, you can't help me." Something like that.
Yeah.
And Dimitri in his awesome fucking Greek accent, he goes, "You know, this motherfucker, he looks like he's my garbage man." I thought he was my garbage man, and I was like, "Fuck."
That same jacket that he wore at the special, he would wear it all the time, dude.
The same exact one. He came in with that, and his hair looked like it had been like fucking. It had starch on it, bro, and it was being creased like fucking Solo Benz back in the 90s.
He was waiting for that shit, bro. Waiting for it.
I guess so, man. And then them two get in trouble together, him and Suge, and then Suge later runs and kills an actor over by Tams, and he's been incarcerated since.
It was around the time we were working. I mean, still there, right?
This is shortly after, because I think that was 2014, 2015, around there. I was already out because I quit working for the company in May of 2013, and I just became a freelancer and made some pretty good fucking dough, man, doing it. And then I had enough to afford my wedding in December of that year. So I mean, it was meant to be. I mean, like I said, dude, I totally felt like Jordan, dude, coming back and playing for the Washington Wizards. I was so burnt out. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be with you guys because I didn't want to sell anymore. And they're like, "No, we have enough techs as it is." I'm like, "Well, you can use another one that knows their shit," but you know, that's a whole different story. And then
I'm not even getting started with that, because you know what it was with that company in general, they don't appreciate like talent across the board, because I saw really good salespeople that would work that could like it was like a revolving door pretty much every single time I saw.
I believe it.
And all it was like for many people, it was just a stepping stone to just be like, I just need a job at the moment, you know. Remember,
that's
exactly, like many of us were coming out of the 2008 like also like situation, you know, freaking market crashing and everything. So people were just trying to stay in place, you know, and that's kind of what it was. And even then, though, like the leadership when it comes to that company is horrific. The way they promote is all favoritism. But then again, we see that on every other place. But it was so like clear as day seeing this company just promoting like favorites, not performers, just favorites, you know. And that's why a lot of us, we just became like this thing where even though we were like our store across the board, we had a great team, we had a great dynamic. I loved our store. Like, and at the end of the day, it was management that broke it. You know, it wasn't even like it wasn't even our management, it was upper management above them.
You know what trips me out, and I have a question for you after too, though, is like they made us sell, right? They wanted us to sell technicians, right? After a couple of years, like I think 2 years or 3 years into he was a technician, 2 years when I came in, they wanted us to sell a quota. But the trippy thing is, like, we weren't even using POS systems, dude. We were doing it from our tech desk. And we had to like take your credit card and then punch in everything manually. Like this is the kind of shit, like, how does the customer not know that I'm just stealing your information, dude? Like I can literally just open up like
Whoa, what
and
the
type
fuck?
everything in and give you your card back. Yeah, because we didn't have a swiper. We don't have a credit card machine.
In other words, they didn't give us the equipment to work.
Yeah, if the POS systems were taken and our store was small, so that was
Whoa.
total, we couldn't wait, right? Because let's say we fixed your phone and we wanted to sell you a case, a charger, whatnot. I would have to just take them back to my desk and like I have to just make sure that the customer trusted me with their credit cards. 99% of the time, no one batted an eye, dude. Nobody batted
All
an
that
eye.
was missing is you getting the social security card and call it a day, man. You'd be selling those shit at Mac Park in no time.
Dude, it's a trip. We couldn't even print them a legit receipt. It was literally from the copy machine in the back. So
wow.
it was a sheet of paper with your receipt.
That fucking perforated printer from the fucking DNV and shit.
Cut it. Yeah. It's these things you think about. And when you go back, you're like, wow, that is completely shady.
Whoa. That's unethical.
Yeah. Well, I'll add even more to what happened. Though. Like there was so much corruption in those stores. But again, it goes back to our management. Our management saw it, they ignored it. They were just like, as long as the numbers add up, they didn't care. They did not care. So we have the store. If we let's put it this way: we were really bad people. We would have freaking robbed that store, but it never happened because we knew.
Yeah.
We knew that at the end of the day, I'm like, this is not where I'm gonna go down for something petty. You know,
you saw other people do it. Yeah. You saw other people take.
I was gonna say there's other opportunists that I know, and I was witness to a few of them from a manager that came later. I'm not gonna throw them under the bus, obviously, right now. Yeah, but still, like I got how there was just like these loopholes, but at the same time they weren't loopholes. You were basically slamming people for things that they didn't need. And they already had.
It was like managers took advantage of loopholes to get more sales to the point where everything would be semi-clean, right?
Yeah.
If you looked into it a little too much, then you would see the fraud going on. And then you saw this regular sales rep take advantage of fraud. And then you had the really shitty sales reps that taking advantage of the company, whatever, they got millions, right? Whatever you take advantage, they're gonna make up. And they have a deficit.
And the worst part about a lot of these sales reps, they will use each other's numbers. Like they will pick on the new guy, right? Now, let's say you come in, Edgar. You're the brand new guy, and they'll be like, "Hey, can you sign in for me?"
Yeah.
And so they'll use your number, to pretty much do fraud.
And then, the problem, really shitty reps were the ones that were taking advantage of the customers.
Oh yeah, those
were straight up stealing from them. Especially people that are undocumented. They just needed a phone. They needed some help. They needed a hookup. Man, we had some shitty reps that would completely take advantage of people like that. Fucking sucks.
Oh, 100%, man.
Even some of the reps took advantage with people with mental health issues too. You could see it when they come in, and they would sell them everything.
Oh yeah, we had the VA up the street. They would come in all the time. We would just
that's right.
As soon as they get their SSI checks,
boom,
we would try to take advantage. Like, oh, you need this, you need that, you need a new Bluetooth speaker. It was really
those were the guys that would always get sold that fucking jam box.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I remember that, or like $100 fucking Bluetooth that they were probably not going to use, man.
That's why to be honest, I was glad to be on the technician side because every single time there was an audit, the sales reps were the first ones to get hit. System manager, technicians, we would get hit, but that's the reason why we didn't do it because they knew that we had full access to the inventory.
Totally.
So we always have to watch out for our asses because we knew that if anything went missing or went over, they knew they would try to throw it under us. We're just like, no.
Totally.
No. So that's why I was like, that's the reason why we used to regulate a lot. We try to regulate a lot of the sales rep. Like, yo, you guys need to fucking put the shit back, man, because this thing is going to eat us. and we were the ones getting eaten up on it.
Oh, totally. I saw that firsthand. And going back to Juan, I know you were going to ask me something right when you started talking about you guys upselling the from your tech desk. So what was it you're going to ask me?
No, what I was going to ask you is, so you saw the leadership there, and I know it was at the end of your tenure there, right?
Yeah.
But before that, you said you were a sales rep or a wireless rep since 2002.
Yeah, believe it or not, I started with Radio Shack.
Okay, so how was the management at every wireless store you were at leading up?
Man, I'm gonna be straight up.
Same across the board?
Fucking crazy, bro. It was not only. Let me tell you, the craziest one was there's two stories to this, and I'll make them as short as possible. But in 2002, I got hired by Radio Shack at the Montebello Mall here in my hometown. I got hired like during when Shock and Awe happened, Jimmy. Shock and Awe happened, post 9/11. We were watching it on the TVs just stacked up at Radio Shack. That's when I knew I started. That's the biggest memory I have from it. So I was new. I lasted 9 months in there. These guys that were basically training me, they were already there for like 3 or 4 years. The management there was probably the most shady I've ever worked for. And let me explain why. That manager I had was once a district manager for Radio Shack stores at a different area. Demoted himself to sales manager because it's not really a demotion. You get paid more money because if you hit targets, you hit goals, you make money more, because district manager is all salary based. So he's like, fuck this, I'm going to make more money. And now I know how. He had a district manager disc, right? It was a master disc to reconcile any inventory count he wants at his location. I remember we would have to do inventory at our store every 3 months. And I went through approximately 3 inventories because I lasted there 9 months. And every single time we would not have to reconcile.
Was there a difference?
So, yeah.
The wireless part inside of Radio Shack was the same as the store itself. Like you guys didn't have two managers?
No, we had one manager, and I'm like, dude, there's TVs missing. They're like, don't worry about it. I'm like, no, there's clearly a fucking TV missing. And like a bunch of, I was like, fuck.
Wait, doesn't that
like I just saw it yesterday? And I'm like, I go, this motherfucker, if I could reconcile, take that shit, he's about to watch fucking NFL Sunday Ticket on that shit for all I know. And okay, fast forward, he keeps doing this every 3 months. Under the radar, nothing's happening. And then it took for us to say something about our hours not meeting our paychecks, that they weren't matching, to put him under investigation. He resigns. We all get interrogated about this missing inventory. And I'm like, well, how bad could it be? We wrote statements saying, okay, I took this much, whatever. I took like maybe $100 worth of shit. Mostly it was batteries, right? They were trying to pin, check this out, a $200,000 inventory loss at that Radio Shack store on 3 people. Me, my best friend, Roger, that's on the podcast, and our other friend, George. Because they had no leads, they had no evidence. The manager had, dude, once you resign, then the investigation has to go external, and that usually doesn't happen. So they were just waiting for someone they were waiting for some fall guys and get the insurance write-off. And we got taken out in handcuffs, man.
Are you serious?
We got detained at Montebello City Jail. And they told us, well, we're going to have to transfer you guys to county, to Men's Central to get you guys processed. And I'm just like, this is fucking bullshit, dude. And lo and behold, nothing happened. They let us out on OR, or own recognizance. And we went back to the fucking store because at this point we already lost our jobs when they had coerced us into signing statements saying that we were going to keep our jobs. And they were shaking in their boots, but we went over there to fucking basically go to their face. I'm like, you better lawyer up, motherfuckers, because we're taking your ass to court. And we did, and we got the case dismissed because they had nothing. So that's one, right? That's back in 2002. I lasted to 2003. Then I go work for Singular Wireless. Do you remember that company?
Yes. Yeah, AT&T, prior to AT&T.
Yes. So I work for a dealer in 2004. I get fired in 2005 for not hitting a store quota because I got promoted to assistant manager. Performance issues, cool. Whatever, I'll find another one. And then I went to go work for those shady ass kiosks at the Downey Stonewood Mall, where you basically hawk people into buying shit and you just slam them with whatever you can. You already those kiosks.
Yeah, in the middle of the mall.
Yeah, I got tired of that shit. So I'm like, I'm gonna work for a legit fucking corporate company. So I go to Singular, I get the corporate job. They had two corporate kiosks at the Montebello Mall where I used to work. And the culture was different. Everything was different. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to open up a brand new kiosk inside a Mexican supermarket.
All right.
Let me repeat that. We're going to open a brand new kiosk and you're going to open it. You're going to be one of the first employees inside Gigante Supermarkets. In Pico Rivera, California. Oh my God, my homie Andrew McGinnis just tuned in. Did you keep your rollover minutes? I sure did, Andrew. I sure did. Just call me after 7, okay? Call me after 7.
Exactly.
Hey,
just call me after 7. And I had 2,000 text messages, bro. So I made sure I fucking monitor every single fucking message. So we were in front of a Ritmo Latino in the Gigante supermarket, right? So, but before they opened that kiosk, I was training at the Beverly and Montebello store, which used to be a Blue store, an original AT&T store that was transitioning into Singular. Yeah. And that was awesome. That's where I got a crash course on, what it really means to sell the value of something. Because back then, Singular was kind of like a big deal. And Verizon was.
And that was like the golden age of wireless, man.
Yeah, because Verizon was still the top dog. Everyone was trying to beat them. And eventually what wound up happening is I went to the kiosk, and that alone, man, was fucking amazing. The quota was low. We were in Pico Rivera, right there where the infamous fucking In-N-Out is on Whittier and Rosemead, where all the cruising, it's very historic there, Juan. Very historic. All the cruising in the 90s took place there. And it's world renowned, believe it or not. People know about that stuff. Yeah. And so fast forward, I get transferred back to the Montebello kiosk, right? And that's where the shadiness started to happen. I started seeing what would be equivalent to, I forgot what POS system we used to use at Sprint. It was RMS for activations. I remember that. Yeah. But shout out to my homie Steve Farah. He used something similar to what we used to use called Telligence. And it was a Citrix app. And I remember him using a Citrix app to make all kinds of fucking adjustments, right? So that's when I got to know, like, oh yeah, you can request access to this Citrix app and you can basically make money off of flipping features. And I'm like, flipping features? You know what they were having me do, man? And I was not complaining because I got trained to do it. And I will see the commission checks at the end of the week. Say Juan and Jimmy are customer service reps at the call center for Singular. You made money off of upselling people on features on their plan. Anything that read CUST, customer care, on the features, I would future date, flip into my name, bankroll it. I made in 1 month $11,000 in feature flipping. That's just me out of like 10 reps that were at that kiosk. Damn. So do the math. And some dudes are hitting ridiculous numbers like $20,000, $25,000. And I'm like, okay, you ever get the feeling I'm like, I think this might be wrong, but you did it anyway?
It's
right.
Yeah, it's that little devil telling you, and then you're just like, well, but if he told me to do it,
well, it's kind of like we were also kind of sometimes we were Robin Hood too. You know, I'm like, if someone came in knowing that they water damaged their phone and they were really honest and like legit about it, I'm just like, all right, I know I should not turn this into like I should charge you. I'm just like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's exactly what I was thinking of. It's like it was exactly like Robin Hooding that shit, because you know you got a lot of people coming in that just needed the help, or they're like, dude, especially if they're honest, like, hey, I did XYZ to my phone. Any way you can help?
Yeah.
You know,
like we wouldn't hold it against them. It's just like we understand shit happens, you know, and people are gonna be on like if they're honest about it. But see, the people that used to hate the most were used to come in, they're like, I don't know what happened. And they start yelling at me from the beginning, like I had something to do with them dropping their phone on the toilet, you know?
Yeah.
The worst part, and then all of a sudden I opened it up. I always use, thank God they gave us gloves, but that was a one few thing that we did, right? We opened it up, and sure enough, as soon as you open it, and then you could as soon as you open it, you could smell the piss coming out. Like, nope.
Oh yeah, man.
I like take that
I
back.
believe it.
Like
no. You guys seen all the archives of videos that I took when you guys were working as techs, and I seen, I forgot to show you guys this one video where this Iranian lady is yelling at, I think it's either Juan or Ezra, our old manager, and she's basically fucking yelling at either one of you two about, oh, you didn't tell her that you were going to wipe her phone. I'm like, no, bitch. That's the first thing we fucking tell you when you make contact with a rep.
There's
you
that
have to agree to it.
And they had to sign it.
And we that's the reason we started making those papers, for that same reason. Because and people would not pay up. And we're like, I remember like, look, this is what we're gonna do.
But that was the advent of, we'll go back because I want to hear the rest of your adventures in wireless. But that was because the advent of smartphones. Like another topic we gotta hit is also, it's just the iPhone craze. We worked when those phones just exploded, and you had people wait in line. You had reps trying to steal the phones.
Yeah,
you had to keep track of your inventory because people were just trying to jack those shits left and right.
Dude, how many times I felt like we counted those phones like going in and going out. We counted those phones every night.
We made sure. Yeah.
We had shady people. We're like, this is. We already had a lot of the phones reserved. That's the problem too.
Yeah, you
remember when
outright paid for the phone, so they were getting one. Like, hey, can you slip another black one? I'll pay the $1,000 for it right here, right now. Crazy, dude.
You're like, no, we gotta activate it with service, man.
Yeah, that's it.
And I remember, I think it was Jimmy at that store. You were the one that was in charge of shipping and receiving, right?
Yeah,
and then Juan would scan everything, put the gun back in the thing, and everything would load.
Yeah, that's the only reason we were able to keep everything in check, like, you know, because people wanted, like, even I think it was even a point where we had to even lock down the back door because we weren't allowing none of the sales to go back anymore.
Yeah, I remember that.
We kept missing shit. We're just like, no, and then we're getting yelled at for it. We're just like, we can't freaking activate anything under our names anyway because we don't have sales freaking codes.
Yeah,
we have tech codes, so they're different, you know. So
and I remember, it got to the point where we had to lie to other stores that wanted fucking inter-store transfers.
Wasn't that a trip?
And they would just show up. We're like, no, we told you over the phone we don't have any. No, I know you guys have. Like, no, bitch, get the fuck out.
And if their techs were smart, then they would look at our inventory, right?
Yeah, that's what the most of the guys from Monica did, and the ones from like Super Center.
Yeah,
we're like, look, I understand you want these. They ain't getting them, bro. I'm sorry. Like, we have to reserve for our numbers.
That's how shady it was, bro. That even with stores, like, you couldn't even transfer over. because you wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
No, that's your cell. You wanted to keep it.
But at the same time, we were greedy with them because we weren't hitting numbers like any other store. Like we weren't hitting Culver City numbers. We weren't hitting even Metroplex numbers. We weren't even hitting fucking Santa Monica numbers, man. And it's like, dude, like every single piece of fucking inventory we had at that store mattered, man.
That's why you wait for that one customer to come in to spend like over $1,000.
Oh yeah, and
everybody
it
wanted to hit that one. Yeah,
yeah, and it would happen.
Because people knew which customers were just gonna either talk, have cash, or they would let you sell your salesman speech and then be like, "No, I don't want it." Like it was
like fuck crazy, you, dude. Bitch, man. No, all right. Well, we would take turns at the podium at host. And right when it was my turn, here comes like, oh yeah, I want to activate like 10 lines, and then oh yeah, I'm like, fuck. It was either
one thing that our store could never get right was the whole hosting thing or having someone in the front. Everybody was sharks, dude. And then when the manager tried to lay down the smackdown, it worked for like 4 hours, and then it was like back to everybody's old routine. But that's because that's how they trained you there, though, to be a shark. And then they want you to like put the leash on you. That's not gonna happen, dude.
No, it's like putting people on a queue. It's like, dude, no. Like then people look at the queue like, all right, I'm gonna time this shit so I could get the next person that's gonna activate. And
or when that
was the art form.
We had a huge thing too where you could go online and set up an appointment. People would come in, I have an appointment, blah blah. It's like, oh yeah, that thing's not working, dude. Like, we'll get to you.
Because we see the reason for the visit and it says upgrade. I'm like, oh fuck this bitch. No way, man. And then any activation, man, I swear, dude, it was like raw meat for the fucking wolves, dude. Raw fucking meat. But no,
it was such a crazy experience that to this day, I don't think I've ever bought a phone in store because I know how it is.
Yeah. I always do things online now.
Yeah. There's no way I'm walking into the store, man.
So, but
no, I'm not like every time they come up to me, like, no, I know what you're selling me. I don't want it. But what about
exactly?
I played your game.
Let me explain to you some more of the origins as to how that fucking happened, man. Because I lived it. So going back to Singular, we're doing all that stuff, and then the first iPhone comes out. I got to sell that shit. Yes, we had a kiosk there. We had like, what's it called? The rope to form lines like at the nightclub and shit.
Yeah.
And we formed it, and then it was like Lupillo Rivera was coming over to get a phone and trying to cut a line. It was crazy, dude. But back then you just bought the phone and you activated the goddamn thing at home on iTunes.
Oh, yeah,
and that's how they made money, because the rate plan was fucking expensive, man. So fast forward, things get a little bit better. We're still selling Nokias. We're still selling Blackberries because Blackberries are still like the thing because, Barack Obama uses one. I remember that shit. George W. Bush was using one, whatever. So we're selling these like fucking like crack cocaine in the 80s, bro. And lo and behold, man, right when things started to, I'm like, okay, I think we're doing things legitimately. Something as simple as money from the register was not balancing out at the end of the day. Right?
The worst.
And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't right. We had 2 registers. They're supposed to open and close at $150 on the dot. I'm like, okay. We did something very shady, but at the same time, it's subjective, because at a store or at a company that sells SIM technology phones, GSM phones, you can ask to purchase a SIM card replacement. And usually we would charge people $25 for a SIM card replacement. But guess what? They rung out at the register. At what price? Zero. So we had to manually change the fucking price. So we all caught into this really unethical practice where we're like, yeah, it's $25, but it's cash only. See where this is going?
Yeah.
So you get the SIM card, you activate it. You're like at $25. You have an envelope under the register that said BF. What did BF stand for? Beer funds. So we had a community beer funds envelope, right? So we had to tell people, we had to tell the crew each time we sold a SIM card for 25, hey, I'm putting 25 in the BF. That was the code. Okay, cool. And at the end of the month, we tallied up. We'd go get fucked up at BJ's. It was like 20 feet away.
So how did you guys come up with that? Was that to offset the money at first, but then you realized you could just use that to pocket?
Yes, correct. Because the SIM cards were coming out of the inventory, but there was no paper trail of us actually selling it. Nice. And quite frankly, they just didn't watch over that at all.
Damn, so you were one of the dicks then. Good to know, bro. Good to know.
Dude, I swear each time, I mean, I wouldn't get approached so much with those, but when I did, I'm like, okay, fuck it. Like, I'll do it just I was doing it for the team to gather money and then go get fucked up after work. So everyone kept doing it. Before you know it, man, the envelope got so fat that I'm just like, okay, we got to go spend this fucking money, right? What started happening was, I don't know who or how it happened, but they started pulling money out of that BF and putting it into the register. Or they were adding money to it, right? From those $25 SIM card sales and not putting it in the envelope. So they were overfilling the fucking the till. And at the end of the day, they're like, "Oh, we have so much money. What the fuck? It's over $200." And whoever would close at the end would take that money and pocket it. No one ever knew who it was. And quite frankly, like when there was us like all the seasoned veterans closing, we knew what to do and where to put the money. But then you get the rookies and it's all fucked up. Literally, it's like rookie cop dude getting 2 trigger happy and there you go. That game over, right? Yeah. So we figured that out, right? Now came the real shady part. Fuck, and I don't even know. I don't have no evidence. This is just allegations. This is just conjectures. This is just theories. I was in charge of opening not the main kiosk that was by the food court, but the other kiosk, the secondary kiosk that was my personal favorite because it was in front of Victoria's Secret. Yeah. It was right there, and we had a brand new kiosk. And before I went in, I don't know, I just had this feeling. I'm like, something's not right, dude. So I drive, park, get my fucking coffee, whatever, go, and security is right around the kiosk, just taking pictures and shit. The thing was burglarized, bro, right? Because we kept the phones in there. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, did you guys catch them? They're like, no, we just noticed that shit was gone and there was none of you guys around. It was like at 6 a.m. And I'm like, dude, we are not here at 6 a.m. And they're like, you want to go check out the surveillance with us? I'm like, yeah. So we all go up there, and Jimmy, I kid you not, man, 2 homeboys, a black dude and a Mexican, bald, dressed in AT&T gear. So they must have stole the shirt. Oh, wow. Or maybe borrowed it from somebody. Damn. They came in like if they're doing inventory count. The cameras clearly are, they see 2 employees. They didn't think anything of it. They don't have no keys to the kiosk. None of that. They used a fucking tire iron to prop it open and then just calmly start stacking the phones in a little fucking, it was like a dolly that they had. Yeah. And just walked right out confidently, man. And in the video, you clearly see the security walking, turn, and keeps walking.
You know what? I always believe those a lot of times. It's not the first time I've heard something like that before, because it happened to Sprint, where there was also former employees that was an internal job for like they actually like robbed that store at Westwood at one point, but it was from the old people that used to work there. And the messed up part is that they made they held the store at gunpoint, right? But the funny thing is that they made the assistant manager sing the whole time, so they know when he's going in and taking apart the like putting like opening up the safe, and so they were making him sing the whole time so everyone else could hear outside that he was still okay, while telling the other members that were holding the other hostages down in Sprint. And he was like, oh, he could. I forgot what song he was singing, but he was singing it on tone, on point the whole time. But
What the fuck?
It was actually one of the internal, because you know what Sprint and well actually with any company has a bad problem with is getting back their uniforms.
Yeah, we had a couple of inside jobs. That was one, and then I know that Super Center at the time
had another one,
and Santa Monica, they were getting hit up. All the stores around the central Los Angeles area. Yeah, because the Super Center, we're just saying Super Center, but that was by the Beverly Center.
The Beverly Center.
It was literally down the street. But that
no
one got hit.
Fucking shit.
Yeah, that was the biggest one. But the other stores were, some people's codes still work. Yeah, bro. Some people still knew even the security codes for the store, and they never changed them. So you're like, what? And it's always like assistant managers or managers.
And even the managers, the assistant managers, they would not enforce the regulations in their store. So we had remember that back door that we were not supposed to go through ever?
Yeah.
It became a rotating door no matter what. It was meant for emergency. And that's the reason how people used to steal things, because nobody had a back camera back there.
And eventually that back door, I think this happened after you left, Edgar, that it stopped working. So the alarm, they never swapped out the batteries, bro. They never swapped out the batteries, and then they were slamming it so much that it created an indentation. So from the outside, you could just pry it with your hand.
Yeah.
So if you didn't lock it correctly, you could just grab it and then just pull it. And it would just
what the fuck?
But the thing is, though, here's the kicker about all of this.
Wow.
You want to hear something crazy about all this?
Yes.
We used to inform our supervisors and our managers, our district managers, the regional managers about this situation. They didn't give a flying F about it.
The battery never got changed. Every time a new manager came in, like, we're not using that door. 2 days in, they don't want to walk around the store. They fucking start using it.
So the whole concept of lead by example.
Yeah.
You know?
And then,
you're absolutely right, because
that would just
I
would
remember
fucking some other cats outside because you just go in and out. So
fat bowl, just.
I think the last 6 months I was there, I was high as fuck almost every day. Dude.
Oh, dude, I think all of us were, man. All of us were. I mean, I was on one too, because I was just like, man, I gotta get numb with this shit. And at the time, I gotten prescribed fucking painkillers, and we were popping them like candy at Yamada fucking ramen, and coming back and just seeing Juan going. I'm like, we're gonna get through this, man. We're gonna get through this. And then it got okay. So using that example with the Westwood store, and then going back to where I worked at Singular, how Sprint, the thing with me with Sprint, how it ended is I got let go for performance issues, which is perfect. I'm grateful for that. I'm like, okay, I didn't perform. You let me go. It's a clean slate. All right, cool. Because that makes you rehireable later. With AT&T, I lost my job in March. Well, I got suspended in March of 2008 for that money shit that was missing from the register, with no proof whatsoever that I took any money. Right?
Everybody did, or just you?
No, for some reason, again, the week of, there was money missing from the register, and our assistant manager said, you know what, we're all going to throw in money from our own pockets to make it an even 150. I said, fuck that. I'm not doing shit. I'm like, why don't you get money from the beer funds and make it 150? They didn't want to do that. So fast forward, because I disagreed with getting it out of my pocket. They didn't want to touch the beer funds because these fucking alcoholics were like, no. And I'm like, okay, so big deal. I'm like, but I'm not putting in money from my own pocket. That week, they pulled me aside saying that, oh, they caught me on camera taking the money. And I thought it was a prank.
That's a go-to for everything.
That alone, I'm like, look, I've been through this shit before. This is either a joke or you're being serious. And it turned serious real quick. And I'm like, you need to go show me the video or I'm calling the union rep right now. And I walked up to surveillance. I'm like, okay, I'm being falsely accused or something that blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they say you have video surveillance. They're like, dude, they haven't even been up here. And I'm like, and they're like, and quite frankly, we don't have an angle there. And he showed me the camera angle. So what the fuck? So I lost my job to a false allegation that turned into a hearsay case. I got suspended and they wanted me to sign paperwork saying I was okay with it.
Be like, nope.
That was it. It was sour fucking grapes. 100%. Juan.
Did you end up calling the union? Did they do anything?
I did, and they did nothing for me. As a matter of fact, I was getting ready to sue them because the CWA was in shambles. They only had like one or two union reps that were really representing the reps, and I had nothing, man. And I'm just like, look, I'm not. If I want to put myself through this kind of lawsuit for another year and a half, because it usually takes that long. You have to go on disability. You got to go on unemployment. It's a fucking wreck, man. I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, I know people at Sprint that sued, and it took about 2 years for anybody to see for any type of settlement to happen.
Yeah. And it's the hardest 2 years, man. Yeah. The shit you go through in that time is it wears you down, man. And it takes some years off your life, to be honest with you, man. I seen it happen with some people, some personal friends of mine. And I'm like, I'm not putting myself through that. And so I went and got a job in September 2008. Funny you should mention the 2008, Jimmy. I got hired by Washington Mutual.
Oh, damn.
And then the next day, the next day after I passed fingerprints and background and got onboarded, I turned on CNN.
Crap.
And I'm like, oh fuck, am I gonna have a job? And yeah, and I'm like, oh shit. They're like, no, you're gonna be fine. We just got acquired by JP Morgan Chase. I'm like, okay, so you're gonna be working for WAMU Chase. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I'm telling you how I came back into the game, Juan, so that way you know kind of where I'm coming from. So I lasted in banking for 2.5 years, man.
Damn.
I was working for Chase Bank, back when there was actual physical tellers. I was on the teller line, and I wanted to be a personal banker, but I'm like, man, that quote, I'm going back to that sales environment. I don't really want to go there. Like, it was tempting, man.
It's funny that you say that, but there's a huge correlation between working in the banking world and fucking wireless, because I think every rep that I have encountered has done either or. So it's not like they go to like fucking Sport Chalet or something, you know?
Yeah.
Or they go to another like
to the limit.
They don't go to another like retail job or anything. It's either you go from banking to wireless or wireless to banking.
Yeah. And that's kind of, well, it is. And okay, let me ask you this question. I'll ask both of you. What is the correlation between people's money problems and people's phone problems?
Oh, that is true.
Think about that. Their money is their phone. Their phone is their money.
Yeah.
They can't do shit without their phones anymore.
True.
And we worked at probably the pinnacle of when it started happening.
And we were, well, mainly you, but yeah.
Yeah. And fast forward when I was at the bank, 2008, 2009, and then I got fired in 2010, believe it or not.
You got fired again?
No, you're gonna trip out on this. So I hope my homie here, Andrew McGinnis, that said that it was joking about the rollover minutes. He was working with me at Chase. When you sign a contract, an agreement, when you get hired by a bank, if you are a bank teller, you agree to this term. If for whatever reason, no matter how long you've been with the company, if you have a fraudulent transaction that's over $1,000, you're automatically terminated, no matter what the circumstance.
Damn.
So what happened to me was, and I remember like yesterday, man. It was in San Gabriel, and very diverse fucking community, man. You got everything there. Everything is just like, it's like Koreatown, just with Chinese people, not Koreans. And this little cute little short Asian girl, looked like a basketball player, comes up and she has a withdrawal slip for $1,350. Signing everything. She filled it out. She even fucking gave me her ID, right? Because anything over $1,000 you're required to check all parameters to make sure it matches. So she had I blue lighted the ID. It was one of the new California IDs that were coming out, like barely. That match, blue light, bear, all that shit. Check the transactions, check the signature. I'm like, yeah, it looks the same, whatever. Made the withdrawal. But one red flag, and I should have noticed, is her name was Olive Jackson, and she was Asian.
Oh.
Okay, but I asked her, I'm like, oh, Olive Jackson. She goes, yeah. I'm like, Jackson. I'm like, that's a unique last name for an Asian girl. He goes, oh, my husband's black. And I'm like, okay, say no more, right? Say less, whatever. That was the red flag. And then I told my manager that, and he's like, oh man, this better not come back on you, man. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I'm like, well, I got vacation coming up, so I'm just going to enjoy it. And he's like, all right. He's like, but I don't want you to come back and have to fire you. And that was basically like a precursor saying, like, he had a feeling it was going to come back. And the real Olive Jackson, while I was on vacation, called and said, yeah, someone fucking took my money.
Damn, dude. So
I came back from vacation to turn my keys in.
That's a trip. In that situation, you would have just called your manager, though? Like, let's say you're like, yeah, that last name just doesn't add up. At that point, what do you do, though? What are your options?
Well, you're supposed to, if you feel any kind of suspicion, so that way you thwart the fraudulent transaction. But I was already there for 2.5 years. I kind of knew everyone. And, even with the Asian community that used to go there all the time, I knew all of them. I recognized them. I saw patterns. I knew who wasn't from the area and who was just dropping by. And she wasn't from the area. I knew that. But when I question someone about the origin of their last name and tell them, and they say something like, oh, my husband's black, there's a line that you can't cross. But the line that you can cross is okay, hold on, let me get my manager for 1 second. And because I didn't second guess myself, that was the problem. That's how I lost that job. And it was cool, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, man, banking, there's no way but up. You can't stay in the same thing. You have to move to another position or get a credential and move, kind of make lateral moves within the company to. Most people were like, fuck this, like, where's the call center? But they didn't have one. Because there's no dress code. You can go in your fucking pajamas and, brush your teeth in the restroom when you get there and whatnot. Like it was a crazy fucking culture, right? But after that, guess what I went back to, man?
Sales. Wireless.
I went back to sales. And I didn't go back to wireless. You guys are gonna laugh at me, but at the same time, this was a legit fucking gig, and I loved it for the time being. It was just the money wasn't great. I worked for acekaraoke.com, the world's largest karaoke distributor in the city of
You
industry.
found your love for music, huh? Damn, bro.
Dude, bro, I was a show every fucking day. But these Asian cats that I used to work with, I'm like, hey man, you got that new Lady Gaga? How'd you get that? Don't say nothing. Like that. And I'm like, these motherfuckers were pirating shit, right? So obviously there was a licensing issue. And I
haven't heard of Ace, but are they like was that just one store or are they a chain?
They were only that was the main warehouse and also the repair and tech support. And then they had another store in Santa Fe Springs, and then they had another store here in San Gabriel. But most of the orders were online, so they would ship them out. And they literally just I was a call center. I took calls. It was my first sit down job ever. My first sit down job. And it was me taking orders and taking money. And I got people calling from Mississippi, Alabama, asking for Lady Antebellum and Dolly Parton and Engelbert Humperdinck and all that.
Wait.
And
So you sold the song?
I sold I sold the actual the whole it was like a terabyte hard drive machine. All you had to do connect it to a monitor, and it came with the whole mic package. Dude, they're still around. Like if I ever were to buy karaoke hardware, I would get it from them. And they had SD cards full of shit. It was legit, man. But I know they had a licensing issue because they were getting shit that was not even out yet. And I'm like, obviously, you guys are BitTorrenting everything, because I noticed that every single computer there had a VPN. And I'm like, so that's how you guys are doing it. So the VPN was obviously routed to China. Yeah. And I know because I use a VPN whenever I'm not on a trusted network. So I lost that job due to a big argument that I have with my manager. And yeah, so then I tried to appeal the unemployment insurance I was trying to collect, and then came the dreaded fucking calling. I saw an ad somewhere, and they're like, well, we're looking for sales rep for Sprint, a Sprint retailer, a franchise. And I'm like, I guess I'll take another crack at it. So I went back and I started working for a Sprint franchise at the West Covina Mall. And it was at a kiosk again.
Damn.
And and it was cool. Yeah, it was cool, man. But like Best Buy Mobile at the time was right across from us, so that was our competitor. And then the actual Sprint corporate store was right outside, and they had one of the best salesmen in the fucking county, bro. His name was Edgar Quesada. I'll never forget about him. Now he's a real estate mogul, but he was that fucking good, man. Like I would walk over there just to watch him sell. And he's like, hey, if you want, we might have an opening here soon. And I thought I had applied in 2012 for that store opening, but Ezra ended up calling me.
Damn, dude. So it's all his fault.
Yeah, fucking dude.
He snatched you up like a baby, bro.
God damn it. And then fast forward, man. I mean, I meet you guys. I bail from wireless and end up back in, I was still working in L.A., obviously.
Yeah.
But I got into education, man, because I'm just like, no, fuck this, man. There's a lot of uninformed people, especially, and this is me segueing into this next topic, especially people who are transplants to our native city that, I'm like, well, where do you live? Oh, I live in Hollywood. I'm like, where in Hollywood? Like, where do you live? They're like, I live in Hollywood. I'm like, yes, but what part of Hollywood? Well, I live in Hollywood. I'm like, no, dude, where do you live in Hollywood? Do you live in Little Armenia? Do you live in Filipino town? Do you live in little Bangladesh? They're like, what the fuck? I'm like, yo, man, you're in our turf now. We have little districts here and there. So when you say you live in Hollywood, immediately when I say, I'm like, oh, you live in Hollywood? You live in East Hollywood, on the east side. Yeah. And they're like, no, I live in, like, they cannot get it in their fucking head. I'm like, what street do you live on? And they would tell me like, I live off of fucking, what's that street by the old Sears? No, after Western, you know, those little communal fucking streets. There's like the big Sears. Is it Moxton, Broxton?
Oh, Bronson.
There's Bronson, and then there's another one by where my mechanic is, King Bear, right before you hit Vine, and all those little streets. Like they were living there.
Oh yeah,
like they're like, oh yeah, and then they would say shit like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go record in Paramount Studios. I'm like, okay, well, like Paramount Recording Studios or Paramount Studios, like on Melrose. They're like, no, Paramount Studios, isn't that it? I'm like, no. Paramount Recording Studios is in the hood, man. I don't know where you're going. They're like, they expect like this glamorous thing. And then I'm like, I'll take you to Paramount Recording Studios. It's right next to the Earthquake Surplus store off of fucking Santa Monica and Vine.
Yeah. That shit's so
with a fucking homeless dude fucking taking a shit right there. Yeah, and that I'm like, dude.
It looks abandoned, but
yeah.
I mean, obviously, everybody's always recording there, but if you don't know, you're asked out because you look at it, you're like, this can't be the place.
It just looks.
It just doesn't click. Yeah.
And you know, I started working here at SAE in L.A., where this campus used to be on Sunset at 6566. Yeah, and then they moved to Santa Monica and Las Palmas, and the minute I went there, I'm like, oh shit, the arena used to be here. Yeah. And then that's when I explained to people, like, hey, this is the biggest, not just gay club, but there was the biggest nightclub in probably all of California. It was huge.
Yeah.
And then I tell them like these. Yeah, it's like they're little EDM guys that, you know, come from different states. And I'm like, yo, man, like, let me tell you about a time where, you know, times were simpler and times were a little less. They were less complicated and a little more fun. And I would tell them stories. They're like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, that building was right there, right across the street. Now it's gone. And then I'm like, okay, you guys are only familiar with the west side of Hollywood. I'm like, you need to go that way. And they're like, well, what's over there? I'm like, well, first you get to East Hollywood, right? They're like, yeah, and then what? Then once you pass the LA Children's Hospital, that's a whole different world, man.
Yeah, it is.
And they're like, whoa, is it ghetto? I'm like, dude, it's not ghetto. I go, it's historic, man. There's so much. I'm like, of course, you're going to run into Silver Lake first and foremost.
Yeah, the Sunset Junction, which they used to have their own festival for like 25 years or something. Until
that's the shit that they don't know about. Yeah. And they're like, oh, how do you know Dodger Stadium was over here? And I'm like, it's Legion Park, but okay.
Yeah. That festival always signaled like the end of summer, man, because it was at the end of August, and just like, all right, well, that's it. To the end. Yep.
Bro, I used to take the RTD to the fucking Sunset Junction, bro.
Orange and brown.
Yes, fucking running. What was the abbreviation? Rough and tough and dirty or some shit like that.
Everybody had different abbreviations for that, but yeah, the fucking RTD, man.
And people, like, I told them, I'm like, look, man, I grew up in the East Side, in East LA, and then South Central, which is a little bit different. I go, but you really want to know real Hollywood, man? I go, you got to talk to natives from here. And they, you know what the fuck, you know what kind of shit they would say? Well, I didn't know people actually were born and raised here. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, yo, like, I was born at General Hospital, the hood hospital, you know, LAUSC Medical Center. To them, it's like, oh, wow, you're born. I'm like, no, that's where That's where typhus was born, bro. Fuck. And yeah, and
these
I'm
were
like,
all
no.
cats from SAE.
Yeah, they were coming from Chicago. They were coming from Nashville. They were coming from like Wyoming. They were coming from like the ones that talk so much shit. And I'm like, well, go back. Or all the Texans. Obviously, because Texas is better than California. I'm like, then what are you doing in California? It's like, okay.
And too much mustard on that burger. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm over it.
Yeah, but the cool ones were like the guys from the ones from Washington State, Oregon, like our time zone, basically. Obviously, all the Latinos, man, from Mexico, from El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, they all knew like, hey, this is the spot. I'm like, yes, you are Latino. This is where you come, man, and you won't have trouble finding work. And I'm gonna help you. I'm like, I'm not fraternizing. I'm like, but I know when someone is hungry for something, and I would fucking point them in the right direction, and they would get it, Jimmy. They would fucking get it, right?
And that's the thing,
but,
dude.
Yeah, and a lot of these, Juan, a lot of these guys, man, they would come to SAE with a really big sense of entitlement. And it was so weird because I had a bunch of VA students, right? But I had a VA born and raised in fucking not Echo Park. What's that other little district before Echo Park? No. The one further east.
MacArthur Park.
No, not by Mac. What was it?
Westlake Village?
Yeah, they were living in Westlake Village, but they were raised in
Pico Union?
Pico Union. There you go.
Okay.
So they were raised in Pico Union. They go to the Marine Corps. They do 2 tours. They come back fucking 6 years later. They have their GI, the post 9/11 bill. They're ready to fucking get started on what they've been wanting to do this whole time. They just had their due diligence to serve their country, right? That was one guy. Then I had this entitled fucking dude that was in the Navy from Nashville, same fucking benefits, same everything. That was like, well, what are you going to do for me? And I'm like, I go, I could teach you how to fish. They're like, well, I already know how to fish. And I'm like, no, you haven't fished in this ocean, so you don't know. And then the other VA is like, oh, you could teach me. Fuck it. Like, why not? Let's do it. And it created a sense of like, oh, well, you favor them because of this and because of that. And you're racist because I'm white and you're Latino, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, dude. I go, it's not a race. It's not a race thing. He's showing more effort than you are because you think I owe you something. And then they throw, Jimmy, what does he throw at me?
I bet you, and he's all like, well, I served this country for blah, blah, blah. And I did this and I did that and blah, blah, blah. I'm all like, that's cool, bro. I'm all like, you sat in the ship for 9 months out of the year. That's cool.
And respectfully,
don't get me wrong. I talk a lot of shit to my brethren, my Navy brothers. For those that don't know right now, they're like, who is this guy talking shit about the Navy?
Yeah.
First of all, I served in the Corps, so just giving you that heads up. But yeah, like I heard it. I've heard it all. I'm just like, yo, I'm like, no one owes you. Like, same thing in the military. We used to say that no one owes you shit, man. You know, no one owes you a goddamn thing. You have to work for every single inch.
Right.
And that's the reason why I always say, like, for the Marine Corps, it's a little different because we always talk about how we earn everything. We earn our title. Yeah. You never hear that from any other branch. For us, it's always like we've earned every single inch from the moment we get our boots to even blousing things. It's a path to earning your title versus the other.
Totally.
It's just more about work. But again, it's different. You know, it's always changing. But yeah, like
Jimmy, even as a civilian, I know this stuff, and I respectfully tell him, hey, thank you. I know I can only imagine what you went through. However, I'm like, the world was here first. Doesn't know you anything. I would always tell him that. And I would respectfully tell him, look, man, I would expect you to know what it takes to adapt and overcome. because that's imprinted in your brain from the core.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know where the sense of entitlement comes from. And I would have like these deep rooted fucking, not even arguments. They were basically like me attempting to change their mind, which I later learned, man, that's not possible.
I think
And
the difficulty about that is it really stems from that feeling of lack of integration back into society, because the biggest thing I've noticed with veterans coming out of out of the service is we go through a mourning period because think about the transition, the changes. You go from one style of doing things to a different style, and at the same time you're thinking that, oh, all these other kids that are 19, 18-year-olds don't have the same experiences. They're right to a point. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt to a certain extent.
Totally.
Because at the same time, like you said, we still have to continue learning to adapt. Like what we say, don't have the Al Bundy syndrome. Don't have the Al Bundy syndrome where
pig.
Yeah. And that's where some of the guys get stuck on, and some of the women too, because we have women and women in the service, and it's more about like, don't get stuck there and embrace it. I would never say don't be proud of what you did, but don't live there, man, because what it is that it doesn't help you to become stronger.
I can agree with you more,
because if you get stuck in that quarterback mentality, guess what? You're gonna just be. It's just you're living your glory days, and I mean, if that was the best you could do, what else can you do now? How do you give back to yourself at that point? You owe it. I usually say you owe it to yourself to become the best person.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, man. Yeah. And here's the trippy part. Yeah, here's the trippy part, Juan. I would take them around because they're like, oh, okay, well, can you show us around Hollywood? I'm like, okay, well, next time you say Hollywood, you have to be a little bit more specific. I'm like, where do you want to go? They're like, well, we want to go see the Sunset Strip. I'm like, okay, so we're going to go to West Hollywood. That's a little bit different. So I would show them there. I show them that I would work when I worked at the Roxy for a limited time, and all the venues that I used to play at when I played in rock bands. And they weren't impressed. And I'm like, well, you're coming to the Sunset Strip when it's now. It's not what it used to be. It's a shadow of what it was.
Yeah. Big time. It's nothing like how it used to be before. Where before, I mean, people fucking drinking and doing coke outside, not giving a fuck. And
totally.
You still had that sort of just musician rock and roll mentality.
Yeah.
It's just homogenized, dude. Like
100%.
All you have is like those mixed user apartments or hotels.
Yep.
I mean, the death knell was when the House of Blues left. At that point, there's almost
that's man. I kid you not, Juan. The minute they're like, "Oh, can you show us the House of Blues?" I felt something here, man, and I'm just like, I'm gonna show you where it was, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "It's no more." The Comedy Store is right across the street. Sky Bar is across the street too, the infamous Sky Bar. But my beloved fucking Hollywood House of Blues is no more, dude. And I told them the history of all the fucking shows I've been to. For crying out loud, man, I got to see Tupac there as a kid. I snuck in there.
You have to remember that these places also, it took them a long time for them to get even like online ticketing sales. So you could just bounce from club to club.
Yep.
You don't know who the fuck you're gonna see. It's just you pay the $10 entrance fee. Bam, you're there for a couple of hours. You can even head down all the way to the Troubadour. And then pay another couple of bucks and just see all these up and coming bands. And like 6 months later, you hear them like pop off, And you're just like, damn, I saw them when they were just scrapping by. And you had that experience and that pleasure of just going and listening to music and, all in like a 2.5 mile radius, that you could just walk from one place to the other. That's completely gone because even after everything was torn down, when people go to the Comedy Store, they just migrate there, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Especially now with like Uber, you're not gonna go from like the Comedy Store and walk down to, let's say, the Whiskey, right? That's not gonna happen. Yeah, it sucks, dude. All that.
So I gave him the tour of West Hollywood, and then I'm like, well, now I'm going to show you the Hollywood that I grew up, knowing. And they're like, there's another side of Hollywood. I'm like, yeah, let's go. We'll start off with, once you pretty much, to me, I mean, this is subjective, but this is just me. Once you pass La Brea, that's when it starts. Because, La Brea to me was like, all right, that's if you're going eastbound. Like if you go from La Brea to all the way down to Formosa and so on, that's already, for me, it's like, all right, it's pre-West Hollywood to me. Oh, yeah. But from La Brea, that point, from La Brea and Santa Monica where the shopping center is, and then the Musicians Institute, fucking Guitar Institute of Technology, that's right there in the corner. Mm-hmm. From there all the way down, I had to tell them, because that's where the campus was going to come up. And I'm like, yo, man, right there, that's where Red Hot Chili Peppers recorded fucking Blood Sugar Sex Magic. That's where blah, blah, blah. That's where blah, blah, blah. And they couldn't believe it. They're like, what the fuck? Like the studios are right there. I'm like, yes, dude, there's no glamour here. This is where all the work gets done. Yeah. And they were just shocked, man. They were shocked.
Remember Tyler Record and fucking System of a Down?
Oh man, how could I forget? that didn't. I mean, it didn't end well,
but it's something to think about. Like we were both in Hollywood High at the time too. We're just like, what the fuck? And then like it was just wild. It was just the shit that went down in Hollywood alone is like, especially in East Hollywood, because I mean, think about like how much has changed, is how much history you've seen, how many different bands across so many different platforms of like, I remember listening to like just like Cannibal Corpse at the House of Blues, man. I remember that. That's when you brought back House of Blues. That's something that popped in my head because I remember the first time I heard death metal.
I have so many fond memories of that place, man. And the Coconut Teaser.
Even going to Lacan, I still remember. It's funny, my friend Sal brought this up. It's Green Jelly, where Tool played, and you hear those songs in Opiate, and I was just like right by ATLA.
Man.
And then after middle school, we were you could swing by the Green Jelly building and just they would pass out stickers, cassettes, demos. I had an old school Tool demo that they just had, and they would just keep passing it.
You had a cassette?
Yeah, it was a cassette.
You had a cassette?
Yeah.
Oh man, Amoeba music, man. Fuck. I know. So Amoeba's moving, right? Or is it just gone now?
No, it's moving a block up. So it's on Vine and Argyle.
Oh, so I moved to.
It's the same okay. Palladium's at.
Yeah. So I showed them all that. I showed them the CNN building. I showed them the KTLA building. I showed them the notorious. I showed them the two notorious Denny's, the one by the Palladium and the one by Home Depot. And they're like, "What's so special about fucking Denny's?" I'm like, some of the most iconic fucking celebrities and rock stars would eat this fucking food right after a bender, man, or after a gig. And they're like, why didn't they? I'm like, dude, this was just the thing to do, man. And I had to show them the Palladium and then tell them a bunch of stories of the Palladium. And I'm like, for some reason, I'm like, I always get kicked out of this fucking venue, man. And they're like, what? I'm like, for some reason, there's always one or two snappers, man, and I have to fucking light them up. And here comes the guards. And I'm just like, fuck. And keep going further east. I show them. I show them once we pass Home Depot. I show them everything else there, and then I'm just like, well, you're getting to a more concrete jungle part of Hollywood, and they're like, they don't understand that term, concrete jungle. I'm like, look, man. I go, this is our our stomping grounds. This is what we got to know, and everything's cement. I'm like, we only knew grass when we went to parks. If we had a fucking football field, you know, maybe with grass, it was all dirt and fucking chunks of bullshit. I go, but you go further east. I go, this is Little Armenia. You go further down, there's a bunch of shops, and then I think we reached to, where did we go? I believe we hit, I want to say Normandy or Western. I can't remember. But Conway recording studios right there on the right. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, that one looks nice. I'm like, yeah. I go, but look at the area. It's still, you know, it's still urban, man. This is our fucking hood. Mm-hmm. And I had to tell them, like, dude, that's where Taylor Swift recorded all her shit. I go, that's where fucking Daft Punk recorded the infamous Random Access Memory. And I go, and God knows how many rock and roll bands came in and out of there, man. I'm like, shit, I don't know where to start. And then I really wanted to freak them out, right? I go further east. I'm hitting, I think, it's Western. Yeah, the main street right there by the gas station, right? Yeah. I stop right after it and I pull over to the side and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I want to show you something. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, we're going to go pay our respects. And they're like, to what? I'm like, that's the Santa Muerte right there. That's the temple. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I was fucking with them. Like, oh yeah, I got to pay my respects. Cause you know, they're like, isn't that what the El Chapo and other cartels, like they worship? I'm like, and I looked at them like, do you have a problem with that? And they're like, no. Just fucking with them, right? And I'm like, I'm just kidding. So I just drove away. They're like, oh, they're all fucking whatever. And I'm like, no, I go, I'm fucking with you. So then we get to there's is it Normandy, right? Right after
Western, yeah. After Western is Normandy.
Yeah, because I turned into Melrose because Santa Monica just gets kind of, you know, everything merges eventually.
Yeah.
But backtracking, I took him to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. I told him about that, and just showed him around. I'm like, look, man, this is the real Hollywood right here. This is where everyone lives. And then I kept going down. I showed him all the barber shops. I showed him like, oh yeah, there's a Siberian center right here. And they're like, a Siberian center. I'm like, yeah. I go, the chicks are hot. I'm like, cool. And then I showed them like the fucking the metro station, and then kept going down. And as I kept going, you know, you pass the 101 entrance. What's that fucking major exit? There's a McDonald's on the left. It's a ghetto ass car wash on the right.
Are you talking about down in
I think you're talking about Vermont.
Yeah.
Vermont. Yeah. Yes. And just show them all. I'm like, now this is deeper. This is kind of away from East Hollywood. And that's how you could slowly but surely see, oh, so this is what LA is all about. And I'm like, yeah, man. I'm like, what did you expect? Like fucking the shit that we have palm trees that you see on all the promos, whatever. I'm like, but you know, you see a bunch of empty streets for some reason. They go, but no, everyone's riding bikes, everyone's fucking racing, doing donuts or whatever.
Yeah, so, it's really weird when you hear transplants talking to other transplants about living here, and the first thing that always comes out of their mouth is like, well, how's the area? Is it safe? And I'm like, I don't want to get racial here, but it's like, as a white person, you saying that? Yeah. Are you saying, like, is that code word for saying, like, how many minority people are here? Am I going to be scared of these minorities when I move in? Like, yeah. How sketchy is it at night? But, like, what does that mean to you? We lived here all our lives. And if somebody asked me and be like, no, it's not sketchy at all, I don't know how they would take it. But to me, it's like, yeah, I think you'll be safe walking to 7-Eleven and back to your house.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's weird when one transplant asks the other, because it's like, well, how much info can they give you? Because they probably go home from home to work, back to home, and then pre-COVID days they probably went to like public house or some shit to go get a drink and then come back, or go to these fucking bars, you know. They go to the Satellite, bro, out in fucking
wow,
the reservoir and shit, you know.
Fucking Satellite.
So it's like, okay, that's kind of weird. That's always a weird question that other people
Yeah.
and I know they probably don't mean harm, but it's like, well, I think you're just asking the wrong people. You should start asking the people that live there, because then they'll tell you, because they're in the know.
And guess what? If you ask the people that live there, they'll tell you where the fucking cool taco spots are at.
And I'll tell you, don't
exactly,
because you might get shanked. Yeah, but go to the other one. That one's better anyway.
Yeah,
you know,
that one will give you churros, like, but that truck won't.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the advice I would give these fools too. I'm just like, look, man, because they would ask me like, oh, so where can I go? Where can't I go? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, where are you not going to get robbed? I'm like, you'll get robbed in this corner for sure, Santa Monica and Las Palmas. I'll guarantee you that. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, look at that fool right there. He's about to whip out his dick and piss in front of you.
You know what has amplified this too as well? And I haven't downloaded the app just because of that. Is like those citizen apps, bro.
Citizen app, yeah.
That pretty much just amplifies the negativity of your community.
Yeah.
And it makes transplants even more scared.
Oh yeah.
They're just terrified. They're like, dude, did you know that there was like a stabbing or shooting? He's like, he probably deserved it. Something happened there.
It's a
I feel I feel so wicked and fucking just so LA native, bro. Because I start talking shit on those comment threads, like, oh, someone got capped.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they fucking shaked his ass, fool. Parolee. It's a parolee.
Place, right?
Yeah, no, so so that's what I was gonna add right now. Don't, like, if another one that kind of destroys this place, or like destroys our area, really, is the next door.
Yeah.
I really hate that, because
next door, yeah. Some stupid shit on there, man.
One of the most racist shit I've ever read in these comments. Like, you know, one of them, like, I remember one time they're like, oh, like, I shit you not, someone just lost their passport and happened to be a Guatemalan person, right? And you could tell this person was, like, I don't know, either white or Asian, because that's kind of the area that I live around. That's what I usually have, right? And again, I'm even assuming, because anyway, but I'm not even going to go that. But what even the name itself. But anyway, I'm not going to say what the name was. But the moral of the story here was this. I'm like, oh, there's some immigrant running around, probably from Guatemala, probably illegal, causing trouble, and they lost their passport. I'm like, wait a minute. First off, you don't know if that person committed a crime.
Christ, man.
Let's start there.
They did not word it just like that. You serious?
And the worst part about this was right after, like, Trump was just talking. Like, this was in the beginning of when Nextdoor first came out, and it was around like 2000. I want to say like 2016, 2017, around that era.
Lord have mercy.
I just logged on thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll find some cool tips or something, you know, just like maybe. Oh, this will be a cool thing. You know, my neighbors will tell me what's good to eat around here, what's like good places to go hang out. No, most racist shit I ever seen. I was just like, what the fuck? And so I went on there and I'm just like, what is wrong with you? You like, do you even know this person's situation? Do you know this person's probably running around fucking half to death, not knowing where their freaking passport is, you know? And, you know, we don't even know if this person might have just been here on a visa. You know, the fact that he has a passport with him, this says a lot already. He's trying to keep up to date without trying to break any rules, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and I went off on that. Like, well, I didn't mean it. Like, no, you meant it the way you meant it. Don't fucking try to backtrack now. Don't be, like, if you're going to be a racist, fucking be blatant racist about it. At least this way I know to fucking, like, shit on your fucking grave when you die, you know?
And what happens is these people become your neighbors, man. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, you get all these fucking fools, all these trust fund babies moving to fucking Melrose Hill and shit. Right there off of fucking, was it by Dave's Hot Chicken, for example?
Yeah, I used to live there like almost my whole life until I moved out here, and that has changed, you know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but even you know, further up by, like, you know, the because I know back in the day we used to frequent, like, you know, Romaine and fucking what's that other street? I can't remember because I remember my mom used to pronounce it really funny. La Hobart.
Oh.
Hobart. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, ma, ¿dónde vamos? Vamos a ir a la casa de Cecilia. ¿En dónde? En la Hobart.
La whole about
In La Hobart. And I'm like, oh, because, my mom had a bunch of friends on that area, and that's where the parties were cracking because the cops will never get called. I'm like, okay. And slowly but surely, like, I believe it, Juan, I saw the transformation because the minute I saw little white dude, hipster with glasses, walking his Yorkshire fucking terrier at 9 o'clock at night, that's when I know I'm like, that terrified me. Like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, oh fuck.
This thing, it happened east of me, so I lived in Melrose Hill forever until I moved out here and by the Martinez. But everything started in Echo Park and Silver Lake, man. So all those nice places by the reservoir and all that, they pretty much have taken over. If you go up on Hyperion, we called it back in the day. We used to walk a lot. We called it the bowl. Because it just like kind of
the bowl. Yeah.
All those apartments up there now are just full of transplant people.
Yeah, man.
Just don't. I feel like you just don't feed into the community,
Yeah, and then the universal answer I get from them, Juan, is, this is the USA, this is United States. We can move wherever we want. I'm like, you're absolutely right. I'm not disagreeing with you. However, it does not mean that you come in and expect everyone to adapt to you when there's been a culture here for eons, man, for fucking decades. I'm like, if anything, why don't you want to get to know the culture that exists here now? Preserve it, because that's what it's been known for. They're like, well, it's been known for drugs and gangs. I'm like, what state, what major city does not have these issues? I'm like, and guess what? You're looking for a utopia? You shouldn't have moved to L.A. This is not a utopia. I'm like, this is you call a grind, man.
We have a bunch of people that don't move or don't venture past east of the 405, dude. Like they stay on the west side. Like,
it's so weird.
There's some people that anything west of the 405, that is LA to them. Like that.
Yeah.
That, Santa Monica, Venice, Westwood borderline.
Even Elysian Park for them is kind of pushing it because, it's where Dodger Stadium is and that's where people get killed. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just say, man? It's like, that's ridiculous, man. And then I take them you take them further east. I take them to like Olvera Street because they're familiar with Union Station and they're terrified, Juan. They are terrified. I'm like, let me take you to Chinatown.
That spot, bro.
Fuck yeah, bro.
You should have took them to Rampart and take them to the old Tommy's, the original Tommy's.
I took them to the old Rampart and Beverly fucking Tommy's, and they were fucking just eating their burgers like this, dude.
Dude,
and I'm like, I'm over here chomping, fucking eating shit. And I'm like, and they're like, hey, they're like, you should ever go down here. I'm like, all the time, bro. Like, whatever. Like, to us, it's like, dude, don't start no shit. Won't be no shit.
Yeah.
No, my mom would always say, si lo buscas, te encuentran.
Yeah.
Like, don't seek it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what do you look for? What do you want? I'm like, I want to have fun. I want to make new friends. I want to eat this awesome fucking triple chili cheeseburger that I'm going to customize at fucking Tommy's and eat a bunch of fucking chile güeros, the yellow chilies. And let's hit up a spot, dude. Back then, it was the backyard gigs that I used to go to all the time, dude. Like, and then they're like, all right, then go further east, like to where I was raised, like East LA. And to them, it's a culture shock, bro. It's a culture shock. And I'm like, no, this is away from LA. It's more urban. Everything's more spaced out. I go, but this is kind of where all the punk gigs are too. So I would take them to that. And I'm like, and up the street, we're having a metal gig. And then across the way, they're having like this cholo ass fucking backyard boogie with people battling and paper bags and whatnot. And, some of those obviously were suspect. You got to fucking kind of like, all right, kind of maneuver a little bit.
Yeah.
But to them, it's like they're like this, dude. Like, and you know, some are white, some are, you know, Asian, some just come from a different. They're different nationalities, but they don't know that culture that we have here, dude. Like, I even bring them out even further east to San Gabriel Valley, where I live now. And what's the first thing they ask? Why is there so many Asians here? And I'm like, well, fuck, man, I can't fucking make you happy either way. Like, there's too much bullshit in LA and there's too many Asians. And like, why are you complaining? And then go back to where you're living, man. It's like, fuck.
Most people don't understand that we have such a multicultural, like if you look at here in East Hollywood alone.
Yeah.
I remember going to school with Armenians, Black. Which Asian do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the Koreans? Do you want to talk about the Filipinos? Do you want to talk about, you know, we had
Japanese,
Thai. You know, Thai was a big part of our culture. I mean, we talk about every single type of Latino. We have freaking Mexican, we have freaking Salvadorian, Guatemalan, Honduran, Argentinians were even here for a good minute.
Fucking Argentinos are crazy, bro.
Yeah, we have Peruvians, we have everything. And that's why when people are like, how do you understand that? How do you do it? I'm like, I grew up around a multi-layer of people. We had Armenians next door. We had the Black people next door. We had everything. Of course, at one time, I like one minute I might be listening to freaking rancheras on one side and maybe freaking hip hop on the other side later that day.
I was just about to say that. You can tell a lot about an LA native by looking at their fucking playlist, man. Because I go from Meshuggah to fucking El Beeper, bro. Fucking like back to back, dude.
Yeah,
and then they trip on that shit, dude.
Bro, in the mix.
Fuck you. I gotta let my hair out. Fucking wear my white shoes, and then fuck, man. And then Sonora Dinamita comes on, and then right after that, it's fucking Master of Puppets and shit.
Yeah, bro.
And then to add even more, then we'll add some freaking Tupac in there with freaking like California Love and stuff going right.
Oh man.
Live and Die in LA, and then we move over.
Yeah.
We have a little.
See that's a trip because, for example, when I took them to a Dodger game one time, these are still people that I talked to, and guess what? The moral of the story is they moved back to where they were originally from, because they couldn't during pandemic. They didn't know what to do, and I'm like, we know what to do because we're from here. We know how to play it safe. Yeah, we might get sick, we might make it, we might not, man. Who knows? But we know how to. Move. We know how to maneuver because we've been through a lot of shit here. And it's like that saying with Mike Tyson that he never faced adversity until he fought Buster Douglas. That's exactly what these people come in thinking that, oh yeah, I am the Mike Tyson. I'm going to just knock everyone out. And then I'm like, no, man, LA is going to be your dark horse and you're going to hate it, and then you're going to want to go crawl back to where you came from, unfortunately. So, but my point is, I take them to a Dodger game, right? And they're wondering like, oh shit, what is? Yeah, like they heard California Love, and they're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, that's our fucking song. Like, this is our anthem at this fucking stadium, and and then at the end, they're like, well, what is this song? I'm like, this is Randy Newman. It's called I Love L.A. And they were just like, yeah. And I'm just like, this is our fucking jam, dude. Like, this is how we do it. And they're like, then they talk shit, of course, about our food. Like, this isn't a hot dog. I'm like, dude, we're not known for fucking hot dogs in L.A., bro. Like, really? I go, you want a real hot dog? Go down to La Cita in downtown L.A. at 2 a.m. and then ask the little Salvadorian lady to make it as hot as possible with chili, bro. I go, and don't use ketchup on your shit. Just use a bunch of mustard and mayonnaise.
Nah, bro. Hey, after the Mayan, freaking the hot dog ladies outside.
Yes, man. Oh, and I had to show those. I had to show them those. Yeah, I had to show them those venues, and then they're like, "Oh, what's this?" I go, "That one's brand new. That one's called Velasco." And I'm like, hey, and I took him to go see Seven Dust there. Oh. And no, that shit fucking, man, I underestimate the venue, but I'm like that shit's fucking it pops, man. I'm just like for a while there, I was going to a lot of gigs there, and I'm just like, God, man, I forgot that the mine's just next door, and I got to see No Effects there, and I'm just like, yeah, and it's like they're tripping out because they're still kind of our generation of people, but they grew up in different environments, and they're like, oh, well, not a whole lot of rock bands come out of LA. I'm like, well, no, I go, we're not known for you know, cranking out all the rock bands like fucking, you know, Washington State and fucking Oregon and Illinois did. I go, but we're home to two of the most iconic fucking rock and roll bands of all time, and that's Motley Crue and fucking Guns N' Roses. And the minute I said that, guys, the minute I said that, they did not know that those two bands were originated in LA.
Wow.
You believe that shit?
Wow.
They didn't know Guns N' Roses is from LA. I'm like, yo, man, these motherfuckers are from the hood. That's why Welcome to the Jungle is just about that. It's about growing up in the hood. And Axl being a redhead, growing up in the hood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude. And then they didn't know that Metallica too was kind of originated from here, but they went up north to San Francisco. I go, but no, man. I'm like,
all their albums.
Watch. Yeah, I go watch The Dirt, the Motley Crue fucking, filmography or whatever. I go, and I'll take you where they used to rent a house right above the Whiskey A Go-Go. I'm going to show you that apartment. And of course, I call, Mike Magalari because I still talk to him. And I'm like, hey, I got some students that want to check out this place. Is it cool if I bring them by? They're like, yeah. He's like, the door's open. I'm like, okay, just go up.
Okay,
show them. Yeah, and then of course I get free parking because I know all the Armenians own the lots. So I'm just like, hey boss, what's up? They're like, how much time? I'm like, give me about 10 minutes. He goes, okay, park right here. And it's always like some weird ass parking that's like,
all right. Right? He always wants to say like, my friend, this way, my friend. No.
Like that, they're going, and I'm like, I'm about to hit this car, motherfucker. What the fuck? And they're like, you're like literally like this close, dude.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it's crazy, dude. But nonetheless, man, the moral of the story, like I said, I showed these guys Little Armenia, fucking I took them to Little Bangladesh, fucking even further down to Filipino town, all the districts, and the one they were remotely impressed with, I had to go further deep east, borderline Boyle Heights. I had to take him to the Arts District, dude. And that was a little bit more accepting for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I go, yeah. Yeah.
That's 10 years.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because the Warner Music moved to the Arts District. That's where they're at now. And to them, that was kind of like, so this is where I'm like, no, this is what people come to fucking work, man. This is what people grind the fuck out of whatever they got. And they go get fucked up at the breweries, or they go to fucking Wushkush, the German fucking place, and just get tanked, bro. And
the rattlesnake is right. Good. I don't care what anybody says about that.
Best, Jimmy. I agree 100%, bro. I could fuck up two of those things, dude. And and then I take them to Boyle Heights and kind of show them where like different movies were filmed and whatnot, and they went back, man. They went back, and I'm like, I don't blame you, man. If I was living in fucking Nashville, Tennessee, and there was a flash flood and my house was gone, I wouldn't know what to do. I agree, man. But at the same time, I want to learn what I need to do, but they don't want to learn, man. They think that, like, even when I was driving rideshare, Juan, I'm like, oh, where you guys from? Oh, we're from New York. And they're like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from here. They're like, no, where are you originally from? I'm like, born and raised in L.A. And they look at me like, whoa, you're a rare breed. And I'm like, yeah, we're a dying breed, unfortunately.
But that kind of goes back to what I was saying, where anybody who's a transplant, they have built a community. So again, LA is known to be a bubble, right? But then there's a bubble, then there's a bubble, and then there's a bubble, and then there's a bubble. So
if
you're only amongst your kind, you just think that everybody's a transplant. like point in case, the Arts District.
Yeah.
You'll probably native LA people that live down there is probably less than 5%.
Yeah.
You're looking maybe 1%, 2% of LA natives that actually probably live in Arts District.
Oh, totally.
And then let's add more. I'm gonna add a little bit more to that because even then, so like think about it. LA natives have gone through so much crap in LA, from freaking LA riots to freaking O.J. Simpson trial to freaking like what do you call it?
The Rampart Division.
The Rampart Division
with their cops and shit.
Scandalous.
We went through so much of that, and yet we were not only like witnesses to all of that, but yet they call us like we're the bad guys of this whole theater of corruption that's happening. I'm like, nah. First of all, we were just witnesses at the end of the day, and we were getting hit by it too. You know,
man.
I talk about how we used to see families getting dragged out by LAPD. You know, we see
man,
across the board. So I'm not like it's nothing. So like I said, nothing. What I mean is like, the transplants that like Juan mentioned here is just like you're coming in here as an outsider. You're the outsider trying to judge us, and because we don't live whatever. Because again, I met to see like let's put it this way, I met the same type of people like this in the military. They'll be like, you know, like I shit you not. They people actually said this to me. They're like, you know, I've never seen a brown man or a black man in my whole life.
Shut the fuck up. Are you serious?
It was like a legitimate conversation. Like, you guys are my first ones. I only seen you guys on
TV. What the fuck?
Fucking blue.
You know, I believe that because I've been told quite the opposite. They're like, oh, if you're Latino or Mexican or whatever you are, how come you're white? And I'm just like, have you ever picked up a history book, man? Like I am a white indigenous fucking person, man, because of my 27% Iberian ancestry that raped and pillaged my ancestors in Mexico. That's why I look the way I do.
And they're like, you get you know? So
yeah, and I'm just like, I'm the product of raping and pillaging, man. That's what I look for. But if you look at my DNA structure, I'm Aztec and probably some other tribe, probably in North America. And then you have to show them your DNA tests and whatnot. And literally, I'm 60%, Juan, 60% indigenous of the Americas.
That's crazy.
It happened to inherit that 27% that's fucking, look at this shit.
It just stands out more, right?
It's like the sun god said, nah, keep this motherfucker clear. He good. Next. Here's Juan. Here's Jimmy.
And to add more fuel to that fire, let's make them tall too.
Exactly. I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, and then, you know, in my family, it's like a mixture. It's like there's me, and then there's my little short ass uncle, and then my tall ass aunt, and then it's like, and I'm looking at my mom like, genetics is a motherfucker, huh? And she's like, it happens. Like, well, you should see your grandfather. And I saw my grandfather's picture, you know, because he died, because he, you know, back then our life expectancy for us men was not that long. He died when he was in his 50s, and he was 6'5".
Oh shit!
Right, 6'5". He worked on the railroads in Jalisco and Nayarit. But if you look at his face, man, he looks like a nice version of fucking Jaguar Paw from fucking Apocalypto, man. I kid you not, man. I'm just like, whoa, that was a tall fucking indigenous native. I'm just like, how is that? But then I question it. I'm digging into my background, even from you guys probably have Mayan and Inca and like a blend of all kinds of shit. And like I have to remember, I'm like, there was some genetic wonders in our old ancestry too. Like some were tall. And those are probably the people that they use to move the big boulders around. Because as much as I want to conspire that it was extraterrestrials that helped us out to build all these fucking pyramids, I knew there was some genetic wonders within our people that, can you imagine, you guys are the two shortest ones? You look at me like, yeah, that guy's going to pick up the rocks. Oh, yeah. We're just gonna chip away and design it. And I'm going, okay.
You get bread for that too.
Well, let's put it this way. if you were in the military, you'd be carrying the heavy machine gun.
Exactly. And guess what? The military is a perfect example of how natives used to assemble, man. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And cadence is actually an incantation of what natives used to do. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So crazy.
Well, it's kind of like I had a guy that just looked almost identical. We used to call him Big Country. But man,
like the fighter?
Yeah, just fucking
like Roy Nelson.
Yeah, Roy Nelson.
Yeah. He would pick up radios that weighed about 50 pounds with one hand, just throw it over his shoulder. Like, all right, we're going, guys.
That's crazy, man. That's so fucking crazy because I believe I've seen it with my own eyes, man.
You're an anomaly, and I don't want to even be on the other end of your fucking hits right now.
No, and then, dude, Juan, like growing up in L.A., to our peeps, I was like a unicorn, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm growing up in this brown neighborhood, and I'm just like, to me, I'm like, I'm brown. Like inside, I'm like, I know where I come from, but to them, they're just like, oh, you speak Spanish? I'm like, yeah, I didn't learn how to speak English. I was like in first grade. I had to repeat in the summer, dude. And they're like, well, how do you? Yeah, I'm like, because my claim to fame is my mom was pissed for me fucking first grade. So I repeated in the summer. So that whole month of June, I'm not kidding, the whole month of June, Juan, she went and got me Return of the Jedi on VHS. And she made me memorize all of Mark Hamill's dialogue in that fucking film. And she told me to shape my American vernacular, my accent, to match Mark Hamill. So my current American vernacular, my accent is modeled after Mark Hamill in Return of the Jedi.
That is a cool story, actually.
That is fucking crazy. But I didn't want to talk like I wanted to talk like fucking Harrison Ford, dude, like Han Solo. But she didn't like. She goes, no, he's too arrogant. He's too cocky. I'm like, he's cool though, and he has a gun.
Right? Pick the wrong.
Yeah.
No, let's look back. Like looking at now. Let's put Mark Hamill.
Yeah. And then people also ask me like the transplants, bro. They're like, oh, how come you guys don't cheer on the same like football team and stuff? I'm like, well, dude, we were like a franchise whores, man. I go, our actual Super Bowl team that won in L.A. and had a fucking parade at City Hall was the Los Angeles Raiders in 1982. Mm-hmm. I go, after that, they left. I go,
broke up? I think he froze.
Different teams. And like Jimmy, for example, Jimmy is a Broncos fan, which, you know, I don't doubt that. Born and raised in LA, you got to pick one, you got to adopt one. And then some people are not even into football because, you know, we have the Dodgers, we have the Lakers, and then if you're from Koreatown, you're a Clipper fan. But
which is weird.
Back when the sports arena was around.
Yeah.
And then I had to explain that to them, and I go, but our football teams here were either the USC Trojans or the UCLA Bruins, and that was always fun because the West Side would talk shit to the East Side, and we would tailgate in the same fucking parking lots. I'm like, that's how we got to know USC, UCLA football, and in other sports too. I go, but you know, that's not like, you know, like now we have the Rams, now we have the Chargers, but it's a little bit late. Like, oh, okay, like after that to me, Jimmy, to be honest with you,
did really kill us though.
Yeah, that to me, it's like to make new fans for the future. Now this is like, dude, have you guys seen the stadium? It's fucking gorgeous, man.
Yeah, I used to pass by it all the time from work.
Dude, have you seen the new renovations that they did to the Forum? Fucking amazing.
I haven't seen.
Not yet.
Oh Lord, I can't wait to go in there and just break it in the mosh pit to someone that's gonna fucking play, dude. And I'm just because I got to see Metallica with Godsmack and Machine Head. And the Death Magnetic tour there, and I never seen Machine Head inside a stadium, like a venue like that. And I was just like, holy fuck, man, these guys, their stadium quality. And, you know, very little people know of this Bay Area band called Machine Head, but LA loves Machine Head, bro. Like that's kind of like our underdog kind of metal band, aside from all the native LA bands that we've inherited, like Fear Factory, fucking Spine Shank, a couple other ones that, you know, didn't, you know, like Static X, you know, rest in peace, Wayne. Like that type of shit, man. And I have to explain this to a lot to these people, and because they're
like Deftones, because Deftones and Korn, they're from fucking Bakersfield in Sacramento.
Yeah, they're, you know, Sacramento. They're you know, they're North Side cats, but like, you know,
but we
they 100%, man.
Huge here, bro.
Just like we embrace, like, you know, Too Short and E40,
yeah,
you know, all these NorCal guys. I mean, yeah, there's always like this weird rivalry between the South Side and the North Side, but in the end, I'm like, we're in the same fucking state. We're in the same time zone. We know earthquakes. We know rain when we have it. Yeah, we know good fucking food, man. And
best thing about here is the food, man. I'm sorry.
That's one thing I always like.
We're not small people.
No, man, and you can't beat this fucking weather out here. How the fuck? You can't. I mean, it's winter and it's 77 degrees, bro. What the fuck?
You can't beat it. And that's the main reason.
No, I mean,
it's that lore. People always talk about the weather, but once you hear, you experience, like, shit, you guys do not have seasons here, dude. It's like,
no, we don't. We have like basically like park. No, we have park, reverse, and drive. There's no neutral or first or second gear, dude. Yeah. And if we're lucky, like this weekend, we're gonna get rain. Yay! And then it goes away like the next day.
Yeah, and then the following weekend, it's like, oh, it's 86 in February. That's cool.
And then the Santa Ana winds are coming in at 70 miles an hour. You're like, oh, California check. Okay, cool. And then in other news, District Attorney Gascon is releasing 100,000 inmates.
Yeah, right.
It's like, fuck, open season, man. There's gonna be people getting killed left and right, man. I swear.
And,
like the neighborhood's not already hot already.
And then at the end, they're like, oh yeah, well, we're at it. We could go to Big Bear for some snow.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, how long is it to get to Big Bear? It's only 3 hours. Only? I'm like, yeah. It's all the fuck. Like to us, it's nothing. Yeah, like, have you ever sat in traffic for 1 hour? It's like,
have you ever sat at the 405, the 110, the freaking 101, the 5 to 10, any of those numbers that we pretty much threw out there? You're gonna be stuck there for if you haven't sat in traffic for an hour and a half at any point in your life in LA, you're not a true Los Angeles. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Just no. Because
Juan, what's that running joke? Why do they call it the 405? This is my homie Randall, born and raised in South Central, told me this joke a long time ago. I'll never fucking forget it.
Because
he's like
anywhere.
Yeah, he told me straight up, he's like, you know what they call it 405? And I'm like, why, Randall? He goes, because it takes you 405 hours to get to your motherfucking destination. And if you're doing it for some bitch, that means you love her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, that's serious love, bro. If you're taking the 405 to go meet some pussy.
Let's put it this way. At any point you tell a girl, hey, look, I love you so much, I'll get on the 405 for you. That's
what yeah, dude. Because imagine you're from like Westwood and then it's like, hey, where's your girl from? Rancho Cucamonga? Good luck with that.
Oh, where does she live? Calabasas. You got to go on the 405. I'm sorry.
Move out there. Just move out there, man. Don't even bother coming back.
Like, you don't even bother coming back. And as a matter of fact, if you're going to sleep over, leave at 2 a.m.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
That way you can make it to work by 8.
Well, that's crazy. It's COVID times, though. Like,
yeah.
Traffic is picking up a little bit, but still, it's not like it was before.
Totally. So here we've gone on 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's actually pretty impressive, and we have yet to scratch.
I'm impressed that my iPad hasn't died yet, bro.
I know.
Like this, it's chugging along.
Let's do a follow up because we need a part 2, and then I got to help you guys out with all the technical issues as well.
Yeah, here's fucking $700 equipment using a right here. I'm telling you, dude.
Believe it or not, I record this late, and then the first thing I reshare like at 8 a.m. People just start watching this shit like on their commute, on their morning fucking whatever bullshit that they're doing during the day. And believe it or not, this audio portion that I distribute to all major platforms like you guys do with Surviving L.A., that's my highest rated traffic for the podcast. And shout out to all my peeps in Australia that tune in all the fucking time, man.
There you go.
I have a big following in Australia. They make fun of me a lot for being here. They always call me mate. He's like, mate, you Mexican, but you need to get the fuck out of there. He's like, come to Australia. And I'm like, oh, man. He's like, we have fuck, but I've seen the animals.
Offer to at least visit. Or that's what
and they're because you got to remember they're like a day ahead. Yes. So they're watching this shit live during the day. And I'm just like, I forget. I'm just like, what the fuck? It's like Jumanji, bro. Like, what year is it? What year is it?
And the thing about Australians, from what I learned, the Australian Armed Services or the soldiers from Australia, I drank with them once at 29
Lord.
pounds.
Bless you. Bless you.
Let's put it this way. I don't think my liver recovered for at least a year.
I don't think they have livers. They don't.
Yeah, I think they have transplant or something else.
They're made out of like
fucking liver or some sort. Because I was like, I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, where the fuck are you putting all that beer?
just like Arnold would say in Terminator 2, it's like the liver is made out of liquid metal T1000.
Like, I would not fucking deny that shit.
The cybernetic titanium liquid alloy.
I learned my lesson quickly.
But I want to conclude with this portion of the podcast and have you guys, because I'm going to make a clip out of this, and this is where I asked the both of you, if there would be one piece of advice to give to a transplant moving to, say, East Hollywood, to Mid-City LA, Koreatown, even South Central, South LA, what's that one piece of advice that you would offer to them? Not right now, maybe when we get through this pandemic and they're like, okay, I'm going to make the move to the city. What's the one piece of advice you would offer them right now?
Explore, man. Even during the pandemic, I take walks around here in the city. I work from home right now. It gets tiring. Number one thing you could do is, I know you can't go to a restaurant, sit down and eat, but just go ahead and explore your neighborhood. Because I'm pretty sure you came here for some creative effort. You got to get those creative juices flowing and just learn your city and learn where you live and just observe the people around you. That alone will just get that fuel started and will probably just open up your, creative intuition and sort of just trying to see what day-to-day life is for a typical LA native.
I hear you.
Yeah. I think going off of what Juan said, I think exploring definitely, being afraid to get let go of the car. Let go of the car. If you're here for the first time, get on our transportation system. It might not be the best, but it hits all the major big points that you need to get, especially if you get on the red line, you get on that purple line, just get, head down to the beach, hang out with some of those people down there and be like, go to Venice, and check out like that style of living is so much different than living on like if you go to Huntington, like the Huntington Beach and all these other places. I would say,
oh yeah, definitely.
Try every mode of transportation, whether it's on a bike, walking, try these freaking little freaking scooters that they have now, like the birds, you know, whatever they call them now. I don't know what the fuck they call them nowadays. You know, get on those and just check out every bar. Make it a mission. Like, you know what? Today I'm gonna get an Uber. I'm gonna go to this section where they told me in Old Town Pasadena. Go. Don't be afraid to go in there. Fucking hang out there. Go to the smoke shops. Go to, you know, no one's. Let's put it this way: the best experience I have is walking into the smoke shop. It looks intimidating. It looks a little different at first. Makes it even more reason I want to walk in there because I'm like, what is in here and why are you like what attracts you? Like, try every single dish at least once.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it be from a taco truck to a little stand that might not be there tomorrow, to maybe a freaking, like, you know, a local mom and pop shop. That's where you're gonna get your best food. And guess what? You talk to those people and they'll tell you where the real shit's at. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, that's my advice. You know, talk to the people at the restaurants. Talk to where you go eat. Those people will know where to hang out.
Support your local community and even street vendors, man.
Oh, man.
Like, that shit's not gonna kill you, bro. You might get the shit for the first 2 days, but that's fine.
You're building antibodies.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
and we have a variety of street vendors. We have the guy selling elotes, corn, for people that don't know what elote means. We have raspados. We have paletas. We have I even had a guy who was selling what was he selling? It's the gluten-free churros, the guy that whistles.
If you want to get real crazy, I know on Vermont, it's near, I think it's probably Vermont and 11th Street. But they have the whole, it's all mainly Salvadoran row. It's just all these Salvadoran restaurants, not even restaurants, just food vendors in the street. And they're selling you legit Salvi food.
Fuck yeah, they are, man. They are. They're made with tons of fucking love, man.
Yeah. I would even say, look, if you see one of the ladies selling, like, let's say it's 6 a.m, you have to get to work, you gotta get somewhere. You see a lady on the side with a little freaking cooler on the side, guess what? Stop by, talk to her, ask her, what is she selling?
Yeah.
If she says champurrado, you're missing out, bro. If you're not fucking, trust me, especially if it's like cold, like if it's for me, it's 55 degrees, it's cold. But
for me, 64 is like,
yeah, I'm like, trust me, eating that champurrado freaking nice and warm, man, that feels freaking
yes. Fuck yeah, man.
You know, just freaking delicious. You see, hey, you hear the corn dude. That's what my buddies call him. Like my white boyfriends and they're like, the corn dude. They're like, hey, yeah, let's go get the corn dude, bro. I'm all like, what? Oh, you mean the lotero? Nah, the corn dude. I'm all like, I'm saying the same shit, idiot.
Oh man, hey, it's funny.
If you see a fucking steak in your corn and it has a bunch of shit on it, trust me, best fucking snack you'll ever have.
Fuck yeah, man. And may I recommend also for your transplants. I like, me being from different parts in LA. Of course, I grew up with King Taco, but King Taco is not the end all be all of tacos. I like it's comparable to kind of like In-N-Out, I guess you could say, of tacos, because they only have one set thing.
We have to spend a whole episode on King Taco because it's interesting they say that. But I know we gotta cut it, but we'll talk about King Taco, bro.
Yeah, and because being also an LA native, I'm like, man, there's so many other spots. Like I discovered Tacos El Gavilan. I've discovered even some of the vendors right there on Vermont, and on Melrose and on Santa Monica. And it's like you basically have to take a fucking tour. I call it the taco tour, bro.
Well, it's kind of like we have the Matador, like that motherfucker only shows up like at a certain time. And unless you're from here, you don't know when that.
No. And he will sell out, and he has to pack and go, man. And I've been a victim of like showing up late, man, and I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
I'm like, quiero mi taco.
Now I gotta eat it from this other shitty one.
Yeah, and also, Mr. or Mrs. Transplant, I highly recommend you try. Well, I mean, this is subjective too, because there's a bunch of places that make them so fucking good, and they're different styles and infusions and shit. But be sure you try Salvadorian pupusas. They're called pupusas. What are they? What I like to call it is just a big fucking delicious piece of dough with all kinds of shit in it that just melts in your fucking mouth, dude. And there's different variations, and I will eat them all gladly if you don't want them.
Yeah, I'll send them over.
So fucking exactly. And yeah, we gotta do. We'll do a follow up because aside from the culture aspect that we have in LA, we haven't even scratched the surface on the food, man. Because we can that's never ending, because we from west side to east side, man. It's just I lost track, man. To be honest with you, so many places, and I've taken so many pictures of these people because again, I'm the fucking unicorn. And they're just like, oh, and then they're impressed by how much I can eat of their food, of course. And it's like, man, I'll give me 7, give me 8, give me 4 pupusas, give me, whatever, bro. Like, I love it, man. I mean, you're not going to get that shit in Texas. I'll guarantee you that. You're not going to get that in Chicago. You're not going to get that in Nashville, Tennessee. You're not going to get it in Boise, Idaho. Only in LA. I'm proud to say, through and through, no matter where I move to, I'm forever an LA boy. And now we have a mass vaccination center at Dodger Stadium, and go get your poke on if you dare to, just like Jimmy did. But yeah, so again, thank you guys for getting on. Really appreciate it. We will do a follow-up. And this time we got to have our fucking pallets ready, because whatever you guys have eaten, whatever you guys have tried, we need names, we need locations, we need to help these people out. That way we send traffic their way, because believe it or not, man, as much as a lot of people are out of work, these people are equally struggling so hard, man, to make ends meet. And that's the way they make ends meet, is by selling their labor of their labor of love, man. That's what they're doing to satisfy you, just because you're hungry or fucking drunk at 2 a.m.
Absolutely.
That's exactly, because I that would be me, on a Friday or Saturday. But yeah, man. And again, shameless promotion, as I like to say. Be sure you follow them on Spotify, Surviving L.A. podcast. Easy, just spell it just like that. You'll see it, beautiful palm tree logo. It's actually on the thumbnail to this podcast. It's shout out to Vettel too. That's also on the podcast. Hopefully we can have her on as well. And because I know she's a parent too, and she's she does parent things, and Jimmy and Juan don't have any kids that they know about, no alleged love childs like Ric Flair. So
not so far.
Well, that's the reason why I haven't been back to Japan.
But nonetheless, gentlemen, thanks for being on. I appreciate you guys. We will do a follow-up. And on that note, ahí te guacho, vato.